Okay, so welcome back. In this part of the tutorial series, we're going to be binding values within our query. Now, this is again I think probably one of the best parts of PDO. One of the sort of easy to implement, overlooked in terms of security parts, is the fact that we can bind parameters to queries and thus reduce at least the chance of SQL injection. So I have connected to the database. I've removed all of the loop that we created in the last part of the tutorial. I'm not going to include that here, just basically because we're going to be focusing on binding values. Now what we do is we include sort of like a variable name within a query, then we bind a particular value to that. And we do this by preparing an SQL query. So we use the prepare method of the PDO object that we've created. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Say prepare. And again, I'll say select something like articles dot title from articles. But I'll include something different here, and I'll say where articles dot title like, and then I'll go ahead and include I don't know, the, for example. So this is going to return all of the articles where the title has the in the title. So you can see that we've got something like this one here, this one doesn't, so it will pull up only a small amount of the results, or a select amount of the results. Now prepare, much like the query method, returns the PDO statement object, and what this allows us to do is again make use of the methods that that object has. So for example, we're going to be using the bind value method, which is going to take a specific value. For example, it could be user input, which we'll be integrating into this in just a moment, and it will apply it to here. So it will prepare it, place it into here, and there we have it. So what we're going to be doing now is we're just going to be taking a look at the results that this returns, and we're going to be doing this within here. But what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you how the prepare method doesn't actually execute the query. So I'm going to say rows is equal to query, and remember we need to create a variable here because this will now contain the PDO statement object. We say query fetch all, and we're going to fetch that as an associative array, and then I'm going to go ahead and echo within pre-formatted tags the rows it's returned. Okay, so here now we should see, we should see a set of results, but we have an empty array. The reason for this is because we've only prepared a statement, we haven't actually executed it. And there's another method that's part of the PDO statement object, and that is execute. So now we have the PDO statement object, we can say execute. And what we do is we do stuff here to this query that's being prepared, and then we execute when we're ready. So now you'll see that it contains this result set. We've got 7 results here. All of these contain the word the somewhere in them. Okay, so the stuff we need to do here is we need to take some user input and we need to bind it to this value here, and that includes these outer single quotes as well. We can't just bind this value into here, and you'll see in just a moment, so don't worry about that too much now if you don't understand. So the stuff we need to do here is we need to use the bind bind value method to bind a value from user input into this statement. But first of all, let's take a look at how we might normally do it. So I might, for example, append on a MySQL real escape string. So the MySQL real escape string will return a string that's been escaped for an SQL query, and then we might say $_get search. So now we can pass through anything we want within this get variable. We can use the search So we can search our, for example. We've got our just here within the your, our here, and our, where is that? Oh, here, look at that, very clever. So we've returned 3 results now. The only problem with this is we are tied down now to the MySQL extension of this function, and we're using PDO, which the whole point is it flows, it's OOP, it's not tied down to one, specific database package. So this was the originally. What we now want to do is remove all of this and replace this with search. So colon and the variable name that you want to use to identify this here. So we might have multiple ones of these, that's absolutely fine. And the stuff that we want to do here now is using the PDO object, which is now housed within query. We want to say bind value. So the parameters here are going to be the variable name that we've included within our query, so search, the value, so I'm just going to put the in there for now. In actual fact, not just the, because this is going to mess it up, because we need the single quotes and the wildcards. So it would really look like this, but we'll modify that in just a moment. And then we also have the optional data type, so PDO, this doesn't really have to be a string, but we could just say string anyway. It could be a number, but again, this is optional. So we have got, this would be really useful if you were to say power num, and it was only sort of like a user ID or something. That would be really useful in that case. So we are passing in a string, a search query. So let's just check out how this works. Oops, we've got an empty. Let's have a look here. Oh, sorry, no, we don't need to include these inner single quotes. This will just put this in there for us, so we don't need to include quotes within if we're adding specific values. So for example, if this was just the, we wouldn't need to include the quotes around it, even though we're inserting string data. So here we're not going to return any results anyway, because there's nothing that just equals the. But if, for example, we were taking that in here, you'll see that we haven't included single quotes within these quotes to put it in there, but it still returns this particular result. So hopefully that makes sense. In this case now, though, we just need the wildcards on either side, because we want to search any string from the left, any string from the right. We just want the to be contained within. And forget this search equals our. We haven't implemented that just yet, but now we've returned the original 7 results, but we've bound this value. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be allowing the user to input specific values in here. We've already bound the parameter and included the, and explained about the single quotes and all that stuff. So what we're now going to do is we're going to take the user input and apply it to this string that we're passing through to the bind value method of the PDO statement object that we've returned. And that's going to be applied to the query, and again protecting against SQL injection. So I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to say search is equal to, I'm going to create a ternary operation here, checking if $_get search is set. If it is set, I'm going to make search equal to what's passed through the URL. Otherwise, we'll just make this nothing. So in here now, what we can do is we can pass in search. So now, when we hit enter, if nothing is passed through the get variable, we return all results, because looking for nothing means that it will just find everything because there's no search term. However, if we go ahead and pass in a search, so search equals our, as we did previously, we can see this. Again, if I was to say search equals CSS, we return the 2 articles that contain the term CSS. So we can see now that using bind value, we are basically taking away the tie to you know, the MySQL real escape string function, stuff like that, and we're passing through a search term into this prepared query, executing the query, fetching the results. I know we're outputting as an array, but you know, you can go off and do what you want with these results, and we're doing this in a generic way, but we're also using protection from SQL injection.